Welcome to Liberal Banter with Liz and Olu. Today we have a bit of a different episode. Over the weekend, Trump and his donors and minions had a bit of a retreat in Mar-a-Lago in Florida. We decided it would be interesting to create a round of 16 and try and make a pick for Trump's vice president. Now, obviously, we don't want any of these people near the White House, but we have time, so we thought, why not do this thought exercise since so many of them were gathered in Florida over the weekend? So, our first pairing in the round of 16 is one that both Olu and I have dubbed the mid-off. It's Doug Burgum versus Ben Carson. So, Olu, you want to start with telling us your pick from those two?
Well, first of all, I want to talk about how excited I am to discuss the who's who of bootleakers and psychophants for Trump.
Here,
Um,
here, 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 here.
so we have 16 people willing to sell their souls in total. And as
We
Liz
think.
mentioned,
I feel like we should preface this by saying, like, these are our thoughts on who his final 16 are and our picks. We don't have any more insight than the general public does. We don't know any of these people, but we're going to try anyway because I feel like we're just as qualified as whoever Trump has working for him.
this is true. They're winging it, so we might as well wing it too. All right. So we have the mid-off between Doug Burgum and Ben Carson. Um, I think my reaction to Doug Burgum initially was who? Liz, when you first
Yes.
mentioned the guy.
Mhm.
Um,
Yep.
so he is from the other Dakota, North Dakota. Um, and I mean,
He's a
he
guy. He's a guy. He's
seems
a
like a
guy.
guy,
He's a guy.
middle-aged guy, some person. Apparently he made his millions are now actually worth more than a billion, selling his software to Microsoft. And as we know, making billions suddenly qualifies you to um, have an opinion and lead an entire population of people who would never smell a million in their lives.
Well, yeah, he is the governor of North Dakota, not
Yeah.
South Dakota. That was the other governor we talked about last week, for those who are keeping track.
Yes, the goat
Um,
assassin.
yes, Goat Assassin is South Dakota. North Dakota is guy who sold his company to Microsoft. And then we have him going up against Ben Carson, who used to be America's favorite doctor until 2016, I think, when he um, first ran for office. And I guess everyone got way more of Ben Carson than they thought they needed and decided they were good. So between Doug Burgum and Ben Carson, who's your pick for this first matchup?
I just, I mean, I don't think either of them are compelling. But if I had to choose, I think I would choose Ben Carson, and that's who I picked.
Oh, we
Next,
already have our first disagreement because I picked Doug Burgum to win. Now, please tell us why Ben Carson.
he already has name recognition. He tried to run for president before. He was in Trump's former cabinet, so I feel like he's demonstrated loyalty. I think initially Doug Burgum tried to cast himself as separate from Trump, so he's kind of disloyal, and now he's
Mm,
trying to come back into the Trump fold, and that just
mm.
feels fake to me.
Well, I mean, it's well, that's true, but I picked Doug because Governor Doug, as I'm going to start calling him, because he is a billionaire and he has money and the campaign needs money. That's not um, I don't know how far in this bracket he's going to make it. At least I know on my end he doesn't make it past this next round, but up against Ben Carson, I'm going to go with Doug Burgum.
I
But
mean, I
let's
would
do
say this is the least consequential matchup, so it's fine.
that's these are not our top seeds, folks. Okay, let's move on to the next pairing or matchup. We have Tim Scott versus Vivek Ramaswamy. So
Yes,
I will tell you my pick here. My pick here is Tim Scott.
I
Um,
agree. That's my pick.
Vivek is a character, a very loud character who turned off a lot of people when he was campaigning for Republican nominee, and just to me was so frustrating to listen to because he was such a misogynist. And I'm saying these things, but these are not disqualifying reasons for being VP. The reason I don't think he's going to be making it out of this round and I don't think he's going to be VP is because I strongly believe that despite how much of a troll he was during the campaign, he may be a little too much for Trump, who is already taking up that position in the campaign. And also, I did see some coverage that said that a lot of insiders don't seem to think Vivek is going to be the pick. So I decided to go with Tim Scott. Tim Scott to me seems more like Trump's guy. He's obviously proven that he wants to be in the campaign, going against Nikki Haley and endorsing Trump and being such a sycophant, really, during the campaign, the early stages of the campaign, that I do think he would win against Vivek. So that's why I picked Tim Scott.
Yeah, I mean, Vivek is just major douche vibes, which compared to Trump is saying something.
It really is. It really is. Yeah.
That guy just gives major, like, punches face vibes. Like, even Republicans started to be turned off by him, and those are the group who actually seem to, respond to own the lib stuff. But even he was too much for them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah, I definitely see him in Trump's cabinet somewhere, assuming Trump wins. And please, Holy Spirit, God, Satan, whoever you pray to, I hope that doesn't happen. But I don't see him as the VP. I don't see him as VP at all. So I'm glad we agree on that pick. Okay, next matchup now. Now we're getting into some people who I think have kind of a shot. So Elise Stefanik, who is the congresswoman from New York who made a name for herself, we'll say, by harassing a bunch of heads of prestigious colleges. And then J.D. Vance, who's best known for writing Hillbilly Elegy, which is a book and a movie. If you haven't seen it, I guess you can watch it. It's on Netflix. So we have Elise Stefanik, congressman from New York, J.D. Vance, congressman from Ohio. Who's your pick?
so I picked Elista Stefanik because I think that the Trump campaign just really, really needs to have a woman to help them, you know, um, dust off the turd that is their anti-abortion stance. Um, she is young. She's from New York. She can be more articulate, for example, on their position, and maybe might be able to wrangle some female voters for Trump. Um, I just I do worry that the New York thing might be a double-edged sword, because then she might also be like from the swamp, as he likes to call it. And
This, mm.
obviously being from New York is just like, ooh, that Sodom and Gomorrah area, they're all like evil. How
Well,
not
I
sure,
mean,
but definitely needs a woman.
technically, Trump is from New York. I also picked Elise Stefanik. I was leaning towards JD Vance, to be honest, but then I thought, like, between these two people, I'm not really sure either of them is bringing something to the campaign, right? Trump needs someone who can really fundraise, it sounds like, especially if he's going to be in court all campaign. And I don't know if these two are really that much of a big deal when it comes to fundraising. Also, JD Vance, I don't know. It's just he
Isn't
strikes me
JD
as
Vance a venture capitalist from? He's from
is he a VC
Ohio.
guy? He is from Ohio. I don't know if he's a VC guy. But he did say horrible things about horrible slash almost true things. I think there was a time he compared Trump to Hitler, which is deep. And I don't think Trump gets over stuff like that easily, right? He seems like he holds a grudge. So I don't really see him working too well with JD Vance. So I did pick Elise Stefanik. Um, she seems like the type who would really go to bat for him. I'm just not sure of either of these two who is like bringing stuff to the campaign. So, but we'll say Elise Stefanik. We agree on the pick from that pairing. What about these next two? Wesley Hunt, who is a congressman from Texas, I believe in the Houston area, and then Mike Waltz, who is a congressman from Florida, who actually is the person who took over Ron DeSantis's old seat in Florida.
Yeah, I mean, here's another who category. I had to look up these people. Never heard of them before.
Yes, yes.
Um, Wesley Hunt is some person. He looks like, or he seems like somebody like Tim Scott who had the, gumption to get married before before becoming a senator. I don't know.
Oh,
I don't
good for
know
him.
what
Good for
to say
him.
about this guy. Um,
Well,
he looks
well,
black.
as I
He
did.
looks like a ESPN commentator. I don't know what to say.
Sorry, did you say he looks bland?
Yeah.
Bland. Wow. Okay. Wow. Wesley Hunt, bland. Are Texas. Okay. Well, I did look. So I looked both of them up. They are both veterans, which I thought was interesting. One from Texas, one from Florida. But who's your pick between the two?
um, so I picked Mike Waltz. He's from Florida. Florida is important for Trump to be delivered to Trump. So I think he would. I think Texas is clearly very safe. Maybe Florida is
For
also,
now,
um,
I think Florida is kind of safe too, honestly.
but I think that would, make more sense. I think the problem is that we have way too many Florida guys in this tournament.
Yes. Yes. I agree. I agree.
um, Not sure how we ended up that way, but Mike Waltz is a representative from Florida. You know, the Trump campaign definitely wants that Florida man energy. So,
Yes. That's true. They have a Florida man for VP. This also brings up an interesting point, which I just learned, which was the constitutional issues around having a president and VP from the same state,
exactly.
which I had no idea. But apparently, you are not allowed, or you should not have a VP and president from the same state. So, or
Yeah,
V,
the electoral college doesn't allow voters to choose
yeah,
president and a vice president from the same state. So somebody has to move from Florida to make this happen.
fun fact, everyone. You come to the podcast, you learn things. We know now you can't have VP and president from the same state. So if we end up with one of these Florida men for VP, they will have to move out of state or at least move their residence to another state in order to run as Trump's VP because Trump already claimed Florida. I also picked Mike Waltz for the reasons you chose. It sounds like he already had some exposure working with the White House as a quote White House advisor, whatever that means for him. He is a veteran. He is from Florida. He seems to have spent a decent amount of time at Mar-a-Lago, so I assume he and Trump are friends, and that's why I picked him over Wesley Hunt. Wesley was on this list because he this weekend retreat that we talked about, he was there, and it looks like he did give a speech while he was there based on all the reporting that's coming out from there. So that's why Wesley is on the list, but I also went with Mike Waltz. So we have our first four picks from for the quarterfinal round of this VP selection. So far we have Doug Burgum, Tim Scott, Elise Stefanik, and Mike Waltz.
Yeah, the only
And
disagreement I have with you is that I have Ben Carson instead of.
yes, you have Ben Carson instead of Doug Burgum, which is fine. So going to the second sort of half, the second eight in the round of 16. First pairing there, Ron DeSantis versus Marco Rubio, two Florida men, the Florida off. Who's
There's
your pick?
way too much Florida, and there's still more Florida coming out. I
A
don't
little bit more Florida after this.
understand. Yeah, so I mean, Marco Rubio has been around. Everybody knows him as the Cuban American senator from Florida. Um, so I think he has a solid chance, even though I ended up picking Ron DeSantis. Uh,
No, why?
well,
Ronald
I think Ron has been more in the consciousness. Honestly, I think either of those people would be fine because they would,
Right,
you know,
but we
give
can't have both of
the
them.
they would
So you
give
have to
the
pick one.
right. I think Ron DeSantis gives the people who want to pretend that they have principles, but they just have to hold their nose and vote for a Republican anyway. I feel like Ron DeSantis on the ticket will make them feel like, okay, I don't like Trump, but at least I'm voting for somebody who um, tried to not be like Trump or try to be um, a more articulate version of Trump. Now,
Mm.
I don't know how that is going to work. I do not think Ron DeSantis has any chance, period. I don't think Trump wants anybody who is clearly going to be want to be president and going to be watching his pulse every day until
I
he
mean,
drops dead.
well,
I don't think he wants.
sure. Sure, but optimistically speaking, this if Trump wins, again, please universe, please no, but if Trump wins, this is his last term technically. Now we all know there's rumors about him never leaving and turning America into a dictatorship, but why would he care if the person who's his VP is trying to, run for office? I'm not sure that that would matter. However, I picked Marco Rubio to win this pairing, this Florida man off. I picked Marco Rubio because even though Rubio has in the past said some things about Trump that were not great, which is usually a sign of disloyalty, which Trump is very big on loyalty now, especially after Mike Pence was, quote, a traitor on January 6th. Um, even though Trump is bringing loyalty, I think Marco Rubio over Ron DeSantis because logistically, I don't see Ron DeSantis moving out of Florida and giving up the Florida governorship just to
That's
be
true.
Trump's VP.
That's true.
Second, Marco Rubio is a man who has shown that he can bend over backwards to support Trump. So I picked him because I think Rubio has a longer standing track record of caving to Trump, where Ron DeSantis, recently has said some not great things about Trump. And I believe there was an article a couple of months ago that said that Ron DeSantis had told people that he didn't want to be Trump's VP. So if stuff like that is out there, I doubt he's going to be the pick.
Just
Um,
remember that Marco Rubio also gave a disastrous SOTA response years ago.
yeah, but that was many, many moons ago. Who even remembers how he couldn't drink water out of a bottle?
I remember the weird like eye contact and gulping down
Oh
water.
my gosh.
It was
God.
creepy.
It was a lot. I remember that. Yeah. Okay. Next pairing. Byron Donalds, another Florida man, versus Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is a um loud and crazy Republican face off. Sorry, loud and crazy Republican Congress people face off. Byron Donalds versus MTG.
Okay,
Who
first of all,
you
I
got?
want to reassure our listeners that this is the last Florida man you'd have to encounter in
Yes,
this
that's true.
podcast.
That's true.
But yeah, Byron Donalds and Trainwreck wrapped in a garbage fire. Like just all around chaos machine, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I chose Byron Donalds. I don't think that the Trump
Same, same, same,
campaign
same.
is insane enough to pick the madness that is Marjorie Taylor Greene. Like she's just gonna twist them in circles. They're just not going to want that.
Yeah, I mean, we're still trying to figure out Jewish space lasers, right? That can't be your VP. Can you imagine a Kamala Harris, Marjorie Taylor Greene debate? I think we would rip a hole in like the space time. Like we can't have that. So, and I don't even think Republicans want to see that.
I
So
don't think
I
they
think we're good. I
either.
think it's safe. I also picked Byron Donalds. This man kind of made a name for himself during the whole speaker round of 13 vote for McCarthy. God, that was how many years ago at this point? Feels like that was so long ago.
Literally just a few months ago, like at the end of last
Like a year, about a year over,
year.
just over a year ago. So Byron Donalds made a name for himself then, um, and then has been a constant sort of person on the news and making appearances on more centrist media to defend Trump and Republicans. So he is on the list. He was at Mar-a-Lago this weekend for this retreat that Trump had. So I think he has a chance, and so I picked him over MTG.
Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene might make Byron Donalds for Speaker a thing again because she's trying to kick out
That
Johnson.
is true. This week we will see if MTG is able to get rid of the speaker, again. So that's something to look forward to this week in case you were curious what's going on in DC. No bills or laws being passed, just arguments over who the speaker is,
Yeah.
thanks to Republicans. Next pairing is our governor face off between Sarah Huckabee Sanders, governor of a state in the South, and then Christy Nome, and then Christy Nome, this podcast's uh, most recently discussed governor. Let's say this is now South Dakota. So North Dakota was earlier. Now we're in the South, South Dakota. So South Dakota Governor Christy Nome versus Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I had Christy Nome winning, even though she killed her dog. Your thoughts?
What? How? You're a dog owner. How can you pick?
I think her loyalty and sense of her lack of empathy and the just constant coverage of her might actually work in her favor because Trump is running a chaos campaign. That's why I think that.
Well, she's decided to lean into the whole dog killer thing and is now calling for Joe Biden's dog Commander to be assassinated. So
Oh my God.
clearly she thinks this is working for her.
Can I say Commander stands on business? I don't think we need. Let's leave Commander alone, okay? He bites Secret Service agents. You don't want any of that smoke. Just FYI, people.
I
Yeah.
know.
Actually,
Uh,
speaking of Christy, no, I'm sorry. Someone pointed this out online, and I should fact check it before I say it, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's my podcast. Um, Christy Nome said she was trying to protect her children from the dog, but
okay.
then someone pointed out that if this happened 20 years ago, then how is her oldest child only 17? And I had a little bit of a like whoa moment when I saw that, but then I should have dug into it further, and I will, I promise. But just someone look that up if you can, and let us know in the comments if you
I
know
mean,
the age difference between the dog and the children. But sorry, go on. You were going to talk about your pick.
just to follow up on Kristen Noam, I don't think there's any competent person in our entire camp. Um, she
That's
put
cute.
in some kind of story about meeting Kim Jong Un, the leader of North Korea. That's just like never happened. It's such a glaring lie. So I won't put it past her to have just made up this whole thing so she can seem tough to Donald Trump.
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, I'm when I saw that part about North Korea, I was thinking like, why is the head of North Korea meeting with the governor of South or whatever capacity she was in at the time? But publishers, I guess, don't ask questions about books anymore. They just write whatever the author gives them, so that's fine. But sorry, who is your pick though? Because you
Well,
haven't
I
picked.
chose Sarah Huckabee Sanders. You know, she's like the OG Trump camp person. She was in his
True.
campaign. She became his press secretary. she became governor of Arkansas, which is the state you were looking for there, Liz.
Yes, I knew it was in the South somewhere. I knew it started with an A and was in the South, just like South Dakota is the South Dakota. So,
Right.
yes.
So she became governor of Arkansas with his support. So, I feel like she knows Trump well. She's not as, flashy as some of the other, female picks here. I think she would know how to um, play the role that she is meant to play, which is just to be window dressing for Trump's madness. Um,
Ooh, window dressing. I feel like I should say here, I'm sure Sarah Huckabee Sanders is very accomplished. We just think that if Trump picks a woman, he's not going to let her do anything. That's all we're saying. That's all
right.
we are
And
saying.
honestly, if Trump picks anybody, he doesn't want anyone who is going to be in any position of power. He just wants someone who is going to stand there and nod and maybe clean up some of his less articulate gaffes and errors. Um, but it looks like she's hinting that she wants to stay in Arkansas. She said being governor is the best job and she hopes to do it for the next 7 years. But that's also what you would say if you don't want to jeopardize your post as a governor right now, if you're looking to run in 2024 and you don't really have a guarantee from the campaign yet. So
That's
I think,
interesting. She feels so strongly about Arkansas because I was reading that her approval rating is pretty much the lowest any governor has had, except for when her dad was governor. So interesting. She loves the job. I don't know if the job loves her back.
yeah.
Okay, last pairing for the round of 16. We have two women, Nancy Mace, Congresswoman from South Carolina, and Katie Britt, who is best known for giving the State of the Union response that went, I think, really well. You know, if you're really leaning into the whole Stepford wife, AI generated girlfriend angle. But I picked Nancy Mace, even though I know she has been a little bit critical of Trump, especially around January 6th. She lately has really come back around to the party line of, you know, that wasn't a big deal. Y'all are overreacting. And she's definitely being from South Carolina, I think, and being a woman would be an interesting addition to Trump's campaign.
So I think she has too much swamp energy. In terms of she was classically on the McCarthy and Romney side of things, and now I guess she wants to be VP, so she's trying to um, cozy up to the Trump camp. But I I don't see anybody believing her as a true MAGA person. Um, you know, she has sort of been also more moderate, with Nikki Haley on abortion. And I use moderate very, very loosely here, but like
Yeah, I mean,
not
the
as
bar is
you
pretty low for
right,
Republicans. Yeah.
right. Um, Although, she's probably going to change. She's also a very flip-floppy Republican. She often tries to play both sides, which I don't think is going to go down well with the MAGA base.
Yeah, yeah. She definitely seems like she's trying to kind of sit on the fence a little bit.
Yeah.
She's definitely, I think, thinking longer term political career and not wanting to put everything in Trump's hat, unlike some other people on this list. So your pick was Nancy Mace, then, not
No, I
Katie Britt.
picked Katie Britt because I think she's a true believer. She has that, crazy look in her eyes, as we all saw on national television. She's
My God.
like, she's fully in, and it's clear she has sort of no backbone or whatever. Like that SOTU message was clearly crafted by, some Republican operatives. Like she's just gonna go where you tell her to go. So
Well, she is early in her career, so we'll see how that plays out. We'll see how long that lasts. I didn't pick her because I do think that State of the Union response was just a little too weird, too much, and so people are and by which people I mean people on Trump's team are probably not gonna see her favorably. But okay, so we have our quarterfinalists now. We have Doug Burgum versus Tim Scott. For me, you have Ben Carson versus Tim Scott in your bracket.
yes,
And then Elise Stefanik versus Mike Waltz.
which
Then,
we both agree on.
yes, Marco Rubio versus Byron Donalds
I have Ron DeSantis.
versus Donalds. Okay, still a Florida man off for Florida man face off, so that's fine. And then I had my last two in the quarterfinals are Christy Nome and Nancy Mace.
Somehow we don't agree on this women at all. I have Sarah Saunders and Katie Britt.
That's totally fine. That's totally fine. Let's do the quarterfinals then. So Doug Burgum, Tim Scott. For me, I picked Tim Scott. Who's your pick making it out of that first matchup for the quarterfinal?
Tim Scott.
Okay, finally we agree. Yes, we're sending Tim Scott to the semifinals. That's me giving him a round of applause. Congratulations, Tim Scott. I think same reasons apply, right? I picked Tim Scott because I think he's just the person to deliver what Trump wants, which is a very milk toast vice president that doesn't do a lot. Doug Burgum, honestly, he'd probably be good as like, some kind of cabinet member for Trump. I don't really know if he would be a good VP. I don't think he has a national profile for that, but I can definitely see him getting some cabinet position where he like gives all his friends contracts and just, continues the grift and gives all his billionaire friends
Yep,
government contracts.
I
Cool.
agree.
Yeah. Okay. Then so my next quarterfinal matchup was Elise Stefanik, Mike Waltz.
I picked Elise Stefanik.
Same. Same.
I just Mike Waltz. I don't think anybody knows who that is or anyone has ever thought about that guy.
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll see. He might be a dark horse candidate, but yeah, you're probably right. I also picked Elise Stefanik. I think she raised her profile enough through all the like getting harassing the Harvard president, for example, in Congress. So good for her, I guess. I don't know. Next matchup, I had Marco Rubio versus Byron Donalds, and I picked Byron Donalds. Who's your pick for that?
I picked Byron Donalds too.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah,
Look
like the
at
the
that.
Florida thing, I don't think either people can either Ron DeSantis or Marco Rubio can justify leaving Florida just to be VP because I think then they would be jeopardizing the roles they already have at home. So I
Yeah,
guess Byron
same.
Donalds is a House of Rep, but like that's small potatoes compared to governor and Senate.
Yeah, I mean, there is an argument to be made that Republicans can't really afford to lose another House seat. I mean, let's be fair. If Byron Donalds holds a seat, the odds are Republican is probably going to win the seat anyway. But
Right.
I don't know if they can afford it. We'll see, though. But I also picked Byron Donalds to the semifinals. So congratulations to Byron Donalds as well. And then our last pairing, the only two women left in the group, I had Christy Nome and Nancy Mace. I still picked dog and goat assassin Christy Nome. Who's your pick?
I picked Sarah Saunders. I just think she's a smart choice. She already knows what's what about Trump's proclivities on Trump campaign. She's gonna fit right into the Trump world. Meanwhile, Katie Britt was my other choice, but I think she would have needed some more training and catching up into the Trump philosophy if there
Yeah,
is one.
she's really new. She's really new to the national stage, Katie Britt. Um, but yeah, okay. So now we are at the semifinals. Our final four. We have Tim Scott versus Elise Stefanik, and then Byron Donalds. I have Christy Nome. You have Byron Donalds versus Sarah Sanders. So who's the first matchup? Tim Scott, Elise Stefanik. Who's your pick?
Tim Scott.
Okay, why him over Elise? I'm curious.
Um, you know, clearly, but Trump has demonstrated some kind of favoritism towards Tim Scott. I'm not sure why. I
I'm
guess
also not sure why. I it that
maybe
puzzles me as well.
I know. It's very you're one of the good ones kind of vibe. I'm not sure how he's
Yeah,
decided that Tim Scott is his
yeah,
good one in quotation marks, but it's clearly a thing. Tim Scott has gotten himself a photogenic lady to marry. So
true, yes. He
clearly,
did do that very quickly, I think.
yeah.
Why go
So
through all the trouble of an engagement if you're not gonna get a VP slot out of it?
yeah. So that's who I picked.
Yeah, I also had Tim Scott going to the finals, so yes, agreed. And then Byron Donalds versus, either Kristi Noem or Huckabee Sanders. I picked Byron Donalds. Who's your pick?
I picked Sarah Saunders. I think that they do have to have um I think it will be a smart choice for them to pick a woman in the end. So I picked Sarah Saunders as there needs to be a woman in this thing. Do I really think it has to be Sarah Saunders? No, but I think
Hmm.
uh, either in VP or in cabinet, Trump is really going to need to have a woman to be able to sell the anti-abortion and the overturning of Roe v. Wade that he has done, and like he is clearly not able to articulate anything. Some days it says it's states' rights, some days it says he wants a total ban, some days it says he wants 15 weeks, but then he doesn't really say much about the 6-week ban. It just doesn't have any credibility on the abortion thing.
Yeah, yeah. I picked Byron Donalds to send to the finals. While I agree, I don't know that Trump cares enough about what you're outlining to actually pick a woman. He strikes me as someone who's very misogynistic and just disrespectful to women. And if I were any kind of woman of standing in the Republican Party, I wouldn't even want to be his VP. And I don't see, and like you said earlier, it sounds like Sarah Sanders is kind of taking herself out of the running by saying she enjoys being governor. So I don't know if I agree with your pick. I sent Byron Donalds to the finals of our bracket. So my final bracket is Tim Scott versus Byron Donalds, and yours is Tim Scott versus Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Yes.
So let's do this. Let's, on the count of three, let's say
I feel
who
like
we
we need like
picked.
a fanfare or a trumpet
We're
kind of
gonna
thing.
we'll see if we can add it. Yes, on the count of three, let's do. Are you ready? Let's
Yeah,
call out your winner. Okay, one, two, three.
Tim
Tim
Scott.
Scott. We would like to congratulate Tim Scott for winning the first VP Republican VP bracket for Liberal Banter podcast.
Yeah.
Congratulations to Tim Scott. Um, Even though you and I didn't agree the entire way there, I think we ended up in the correct place at the end.
Yes, Tim Scott was on the Sunday talk shows today. Sorry, on the Sunday, I guess, news shows. I don't know if they're called talk shows. Uh, doing his best obsequious homage to Trump's greatness, and you know, um, six times he was asked if he would certify the election regardless of who wins, and he just refused to answer. His only answer was Trump is going to win. He is all in. Now, we could be wrong because while Trump demands loyalty from others, he's not loyal to anyone. So Tim Scott can do whatever he wants, twist himself in whatever positions and gymnastic maneuvers he wants to do.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
he's definitely giving it his all in
He
terms
is he is doing his
of
best.
yeah.
In the end, we are not rooting for any of these people, right? I don't want Tim Scott for VP. I don't want Trump for president. For now, we'll say that's our pick, and that's our the winner of our bracket.
This is the VP pick. It's not the VP win. It's just a nominee. Um, I don't think that any of those people significantly improve Trump's chances of winning. I think the people who are voting for Trump have already decided. Thank you for joining us on this special episode of the 2024 Trump Veep Stakes. We have been Olu and Liz. We will be following along to see who Trump eventually picks. Let us know what you think about our predictions. You may find us at Liberal Banter on Threads, Instagram, and TikTok. Let's do this again next week. Bye bye now.